Jai Ram, Krishna Hari, Jai 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 Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Krishna Hari, 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 Jai Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. सियावर रामचंद्र की, राधावर कृष्णचंद्र की, सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। ओम नमो नारायण, 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 ओम नमो नारायण। केशव हरि केशव हरि केशव हरि केशव, केशव हरि केशव हरि केशव हरि केशव, केशव हरि केशव हरि केशव हरि केशव, केशव हरि केशव हरि केशव हरि केशव। ओम नमो नारायण, 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 ओम नमो नारायण। माधव हरि माधव हरि माधव हरि माधव, माधव हरि माधव हरि माधव हरि माधव, माधव हरि माधव हरि माधव हरि माधव, माधव हरि माधव हरि माधव हरि माधव। ओम नमो नारायण, ओम नमो नारायण, ओम नमो नारायण, ओम नमो नारायण। गोविंद हरि गोविंद हरि गोविंद हरि गोविंद, गोविंद हरि गोविंद हरि गोविंद हरि गोविंद, गोविंद हरि गोविंद हरि गोविंद हरि गोविंद, गोविंद हरि गोविंद हरि गोविंद हरि गोविंद। ओम नमो नारायण, ओम नमो नारायण, ओम नमो नारायण, ओम नमो नारायण।
Hari Om everyone. Can you all hear me and see me clearly? Awesome. We are in this very beautiful chapter, a technical chapter. I love this chapter because I practically picked this chapter and deliver it as Hinduism 101. There's a lot that can be covered. There's a lot that can be conveyed through this one particular chapter. So I went through last week talking about what are our Shastra or scripture, then what is our view on who the prophet is, so Guru Sishya Parampara. Then in explaining the Shastra, I went into detail as to describe the 4 aspects of Shastra: Shruti, which is the Veda, Smriti, then Itihasa, Purana. Today we will be looking into, or did I cover the aspect of how the Vedic literature is laid out and why it is called Vedanta? Did we go into that? Did we touch upon that? Oh, we did. Okay, I'll rebrush on that so that I can continue forward. So let's begin with the invocation and then start today's. ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. So as I mentioned, there are 4 different categories of Shastra that which guides a Hindu. Shruti, which is called the Veda, Smriti, which gives us how to interact with the world outside, guidelines that is given. Then the Itihasa, which is our history. Ramayana and Mahabharata are our history. Then the last portion is called the Purana, where there is chronicles of various Devi Devatas in a chronological order, describing in a very detailed manner. Most of this there has been a direct connection with one great master that we can never thank enough, and that is Bhagwan Vedavyas Maharaj. The Vedic literature was entirely organized, gathered, and put in paper and pen for the first time by Bhagwan Vedavyasa. Mahabharata is offered by him. He is the author of it. The entire literature of 18 Puranas and 18 Upapuranas are again penned by him. Valmiki Ramayana is of course written by Sage Valmiki, Rishi Valmiki. Therefore, that credit doesn't go to Vyasa Maharaj. The Smriti Granthas, there are several Smriti Granthas, including the Manusmriti. Parashara, who happens to be the father of Vedavyasa Bhagavan, has a Smriti which he has given us to understand and follow how we need to interact with the world outside. The Shruti, it is called and recognized as Shruti because the tradition is we have Vachika Sampradaya. Vachika Sampradaya, it's a vocal tradition that the Guru teaches and you hear, listen to it, and then you process it, understanding it, apply it, and do the corrections, and thereby perfecting it. Now, how is this Vedic literature uh, organized? There are four aspects of the Vedic literature: Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda. Yajur Veda again is divided into two portions: Shukla Yajur Veda and Krishna Yajur Veda. Most of the northern part of India, they follow Shukla Yajur Veda. The southern part below the Vindhyachala mountains, they follow the Krishna Yajur Veda. There are various other Rigvediya, Samavediya, Atharvavediya, those who follow those particular traditions, or Shakha. Shakha means a branch. Now, how are these four aspects of Veda organized? Supposing I take Rig Veda, there are several themes that have been covered. Each theme is called Samhita. Such a beautiful name, such a beautiful word. Hita means that which is for the best benefit of the one that is studying it for application. Samhita means that which is comprehensively good for, like it covers from all different standpoints to be understood. That is called Samhita. Within the Samhita, it is again subdivided into four portions, four parts to it: Mantra, Brahmana, Aranyaka, and Upanishad. Mantra means a formula. There are three words here that I would like to introduce. One is called Mantra, Yantra, and Tantra. Mantra and Tantra have already gotten into the English dictionary. Yantra is yet to get into this English dictionaries. The mantra, mantra, and then the tantra. It almost sounds like tantrums, but yes, what they are referring to is a very diluted. There are so many words that are coming, I have to filter it out. Distorted is the best word that they have as a meaning for Tantra. Now, what are these three words? Mantra means a formula. Yantra is an equipment or a tool, a mechanism. And Tantra means, according to the formula given, to be able to apply this particular yantra for the best benefit of the one that is applying it. To know the technique and process of application is called Tantra. There is nothing esoteric about it. There is nothing exotic about it. Tantra means a mechanism, process, how to, knowing all of this and applying it is called Tantra. Now, supposing I pick this. Oh, you cannot see green color. Okay, supposing I pick a pen. This is a tool. This can be called a yantra. Then writing. When some people write and you read their handwriting, it looks like the scarecrow has just dropped in there and picked and pushed, and there's a lot of imprints, but you literally have to struggle hard. Probably even Brahmaji will struggle hard to read that particular coding. It has to be handwriting. It turned out to be coding. So how to write? Cursive or separate, or different languages, how do you write it? There's some, most of them go from left to right. There are some that go right to left. Then there are some that go top down. So there are various kinds of writing. To know how to write these things and be able to put it in a nice communicable way so that the others understand. That is called, it's a tantra. Yantra, tantra. The mantra is an integral part. A mantra is a formula. Like supposing in mathematics they say a plus b whole square, a square plus b square plus 2ab. That is how I have learnt it. There may be a different sequence of presenting it. 2ab plus a square plus b square, whatever. The result is still the same. So a square plus b square, that is the formula. So now you substitute whatever is a, whatever is b, and you get the solution. Or you have an amount that is already there and it equals a square b square. The a is given, thus now find b. There are different permutations and combinations of how this can be applied. So there is a mantra. Mantra means a formula, and that formula's application is called tantra. The tools through which you apply it is called its yantra. Mantra also means that by contemplating on which it gives you solutions to grow. Mananat trayate iti mantraha. That manana means to contemplate upon. Trayate, that which uplifts you by saving you, by giving you the scope for growth. There are various meanings of it, various shades of meanings. So that entire mantra portion, sometimes even suggestively telling what is the yantra that has to be applied, what are the tantra that has to be applied, on a side note will also be given. So all of that comes under the mantra segment of this samhita, this particular theme of subject of study. Then the second portion is called the Brahmana. Brahmana is to be an expert at it. Brahmana, here we are not talking about, the word Brahmana has also various shades of meaning. One is the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, so the Varna system. Then the second meaning of Brahmana is to be an expert at something. So you get into the kitchen. Have you ever, okay, I'm sure you have gotten into the kitchen. Do you remember your first roti that was made? With your smiles, I'm guessing that yes, you have attempted at it. Now, seriously, what shape did it come out in? You know the shape, right? It's like one of the continents, or the spaces between the continents, or best amoeba. It goes in all different directions. So that is how the first. To make it round, you probably took a steel lid of a steel container and then turned it on the top of it, and a perfect round shape must have come, and the rest of it again back into it, again roll it. First attempt. Now, when you see these people who are so expert that they don't even need to pick it up and turn it around. While they are doing it, it turns, the dough turns under the pin. And they are producing 4 or 5 in a minute. I mean, I've seen those people, like 4 or 5 in a minute. Tuck, tuck, they're talking, they're mixing on with one hand and then again get back. And while doing all of this, they're also on the pan flipping these and still be able to produce 4 or 5 per minute. Now that you call as the expertise in that particular field. And if somebody says, "Oh, I can't cook. I'm an expert at eating," but that also needs expertise. You need to know what goes with what. How does it have to be mixed? How should it be eaten? Supposing you eat a jalebi by dipping it in tea. Yuck! Chi! That's an insult to both tea and the jalebi. Or for that matter, that I have seen and I got really disturbed was gulab jamun in tea. It's like your hair stands on end even looking at such combinations. Ugh. You need to know what goes with what. Otherwise, you go into, say, a Japanese restaurant and they have sushi there, and you think that it is guacamole, and then you take that whole scoop of it and lick it up, only to suffer for the next 15 minutes because it hits you on the palate, upper palate, and somewhere up here. And then you are like, and then you need to know the skill that while eating it, it should not like fall all over your place, fall all around the plate. At the end of it, the plate should look like it is well respected. That it is not like, the things are scattered here, scattered there, as though there was a war zone between North Korea and South Korea, and things are all like dismantled and spread across. What went inside then? So eating also requires skill. So to become an expert at something, they say that when Bhima would eat, the banana leaf on which he had eaten was so clean that people would mistake that it is a cleaned banana leaf ready for being served. Many of us, if we sit on at a banana leaf to eat, probably that banana leaf will be molested, because by the time we are done eating, it would be torn in so many different directions that we feel like, what just happened? You need that skill set for everything in life. So I should tell you this. Recently, there was this Amma that came to me. She has 2 older kids, and she comes and said, "Swamiji, I've been seeing you for the last 15 plus years. How do you manage to put this kumkum on your forehead so round and it sticks all day long? Do you put any gum or do you put anything?" No. It doesn't fall. It doesn't. Expertise, Amma. That is called Brahmana. To become an expert at something, I mean, this is useless, but I'm talking about something more useful and productive. And to be able to maintain that consistency in that is called Brahmana. So mantra is the formula. Brahmana, all its tools, applications, everything put together and being perfect in it is Brahmana. Then comes the Aranyaka. Like supposing you have been introduced to the skill set of cooking. Yes, initially you are given 6 or 7 recipes, 7 days of the week, 7 recipes, and you repeat them week after week and your job is done. Or if you are that lazy bum who has learnt one particular thing where it is a one pot dish. You put the cut vegetables, you put the dal, you put a little bit of masala and rice in it, and there you go. Your khichdi is done. A mushy mashed stuff. And that also has to be done perfectly, but anyways. Okay, you have learnt few. But as you become expert at it, then you start, you know the basics now. Then you start experimenting with stuff. And I'm very, very careful when somebody says, Swamiji, I went through elaborately understanding this recipe and I have cooked this first time only for you. No matter how hungry I am, I immediately take the vow of upavasa. I tell, so Amma, I have taken a vow of fasting. I am not going to be your guinea pig to be experimented upon. If something were to happen, आगे पीछे कोई नहीं है देखने के लिए. Nobody to care for if my tummy goes for a toss. Because you have experimented. Thank you, but from a distance. You become an expert at it, bring it, then I will probably cherish it. So you experiment and then you try, because you're not just happy with the 7 that you have learnt. Now you want to explore. Similarly, those who have learnt this Brahmana portion and have tried it, have reached to a point of expertise that they can very easily, effortlessly do that which has been prescribed. They say, can we do something more here? So that extra research that happens, it has to happen in its solitude. And in that solitude, when you sit down, meditate upon, like, for example, recently I've been working on, something has gotten into me and I got this book. It was lying with me for last 3.5 years. I did not open that book. Even if I had opened, I just had flipped it and put it back. I had not given it that much thought. It was about calligraphy ink art. So one of these days there was a meeting happening and I had to be just a witness, hearing what was happening, that's all. So I was sitting through it, I was flipping that book, and suddenly there was this surge of inspiration. So I started putting my pen skills in there and got the right tools, the yantra, and experimented with about 15-20 of them. Then it is like got possessed with that intensity of it. Somebody suggested, why don't you do some Ramayana with it or Bhagavatam with it? You can narrate the story. Initially, I was not very keen because I was still experimenting. Whatever theme came up, I just used to sketch. One day, there was like back-to-back meeting and I had paper and that right tool was there. And every few minutes I would think, close my eyes and think through, and then come up with the segments that can be represented. I was ecstatic. It was like flowing out, like one theme after the other. Like you contemplate on that particular theme and it has to be translated into something that can be expressed, and the product that came out, it was like I could sit down and keep watching it. So you have that inquisitiveness to explore, research, that exploration, research and contemplation, to get past the just being an expert at something, to explore something new, dimensions and depth in it. When you look at that, when you explore that, then it becomes Aranyaka. At the end of all this research, in that particular theme called Samhita, when you have that reach to the state of perfection, there is a finality to it, there is a crux of it all, and that crux has to necessarily take us to the very core of our own existence. That is given in Upanishads. So therefore, in and through all these different themes across the four aspects of Vedic literature, whether it is Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda and Atharva Veda, there are different themes, and each theme has these four categories of sub-classification. The last part of the classification is the Upanishads. Now, what does this Upanishad talk about? We'll come to that. Being the last portion of the Vedic literature, it doesn't mean that it is at the very end.
Om Namo Narayana. Om Namo Narayana.
Being the last portion of the Vedic literature doesn't mean at the very end of the book. Each portion has a certain theme, and in that theme, the last portion is the Upanishad. Therefore, the last portion, Anta, the last portion, is called Upanishad, or also known as Veda Anta, the last portion of the Veda, Vedanta. That which we should finally culminate into as an subjective experience, that is highlighted in Upanishad. Now, what does this Upanishad talk about? It's the very essence of the entire Vedic literature. The word itself in Sanskritam, this is a very, it's the beauty of the language, is every single word used has a definitive root from which it has evolved, and the root word has certain shades of meaning, and in this particular usage, what that particular shade of meaning would evolve to give us the understanding. All this is researched and the word conveys that meaning. So Upanishad. Now this word Upanishad has three portions to it. Upa, Ni and Sat. Because the letter Sa follows Ni, there is a certain rule that the Sa becomes Sh. Therefore, when you put it together, then it becomes Upanishad. When you break it apart, it is called Sandhi Vichcheda. When you break it apart, it becomes Upa, Ni and Sat. When you go to Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya ji, he gives several meanings of this word Upanishad. So let's take at least one meaning today. Upa means that which can take us closest to, Samiparthe, that which takes us very close to. Ni, Nischayena, Nischayena means with absolute certainty. Like, if you are asking for a direction, and this happens in India, there you don't need a GPS. Why? GPSs are walking all around. So you just roll down your window and lean out and ask, hey, I am trying to reach to this place. Do you know how to get there? And though it is more scientific approach to say north of here, south of here, coming from India to US, I think that was a major learning that I had to do. When somebody would say that north of here, then take the east from there, like, ab kaun yaad rakhe? Who will remember which? I had to stand there and identify which is north, east, south. In India, it's a very different way of guiding. They say, go on this road straight for next 5-10 minutes. You will reach this particular intersection. From there, take left. Third intersection, you will find a blue board. Take the immediate left there. And once you reach, say, the 4th street, when you cross, there you ask somebody, they will guide you from there on. There is no definitive, this is where it is. Some vagueness they will give, and you will certainly reach one day. Upanishad is not like that. Ni particle that is being used there, it says nischayena. There is no wobbly nature of it. It gives with certainty and clarity, absolute certainty and clarity, that these are the pointers to what? And what does it take you closest to? Sat. Sat meaning that which is the existential principle. That existential principle which is our subjective true nature. So what is Upanishad? Set of guiding pointers that takes the individual seeker of truth to closest to this Sat as a pointer. Now one should remember that any pointer has its limitation. When you're driving, the highway or the freeway has the signboards that this particular exit is going to come up. If you are trying to come up to or take that particular exit, in fact some streets also, some lanes will have the marking saying this will turn, I mean if you are in this lane, only for that exit. Meaning beyond that, if you want to continue further, this lane is not meant for that. There are signs meant for it. And then finally, as you are entering into that exit, it also says that this is that exit. That is the pointer. Pointer can take you closest to the pointed, yet it has its own limitation of just being a pointer. Beyond that point, the pointer has served its purpose. If you have a box of medicine or a bottle of medicine and it says all the instructions given, and then it says shake well before use. Who, it doesn't say. Or what has to be shaken well before use, it doesn't say. It is assumed that having read through all of that, that pointer is indicating that shake this bottle of medicine good enough. Oh, I forgot shaking. Now if I start shaking myself, it is not going to help. The medicine, while it is still in the bottle, is when you have to shake. That is what the instruction has been. Once that has been given, the pointer has served its purpose. Similarly, this Upanishad is the set of instructions, guiding forces, pointers given so that the individual seeker of truth can reach to that which is the very essence, the essential nature of our own being. How sacred, how beautiful is this particular knowledge? This knowledge is what even Bhagavan Krishna uses, the Upanishadic knowledge. Bhagavan Krishna uses quite extensively as a message through Bhagavad-Gita as well. There are several shlokas, several concepts, several ideas that have been given in the Upanishadic mantras, which Bhagavan Krishna has right royally cut, copy, paste. He has straight up taken from the Upanishad and used it there. I guess that he loved Kathopanishad the most because that is the maximum copy paste that he has done from. One of our Swamijis very jovially says that Bhagavan Krishna, while he was young, used to steal butter from everybody. When he became older and he was in a battlefield, he straight picked from the Upanishads and pasted it there in the Bhagavad-Gita. The point is, even if it is the avatara that has come down to give this knowledge and wisdom, has to give the authority from the Upanishads. That's how sacred and pinpointed directions that have been given in the Upanishads. That's how sacred they are. Now these Upanishads, therefore in Bhagavad-Gita it is said, in the very end of each chapter, you will read Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavad-Gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishnarjuna Samvade, whatever chapter, whatever name of chapter, it has come to a conclusion. So the very third word, iti Srimad Bhagavad-Gita Su Upanishadsu, the entire Vedic literature's essence is in the Upanishad. The Upanishad's essence is in Bhagavad Gita. So when somebody is trying to seriously study this Vedantic concept, they are advised that you first start with something called Prakarana Grantha. Prakarana meaning that which gives you a framework of understanding of the words that are used in Vedanta, the concepts that are used in Vedanta, and they are presented in a very logical sequence. Those introductory books to understand Vedantic concepts are called Prakarana Grantha. Some examples of Prakarana Grantha: Sadhana Panchakam, Bhaja Govindam, Tattva Bodha, Atma Bodha, Viveka Chudamani. These would be considered as Prakarana Grantha. Some examples of it. An introduction. Once those Prakarana Granthas are very well logically understood, then you step in to something called Prasthanatraya. What are these Prasthanatraya? Prasthanatraya has three portions to it. One is the Upanishadic knowledge, the second is the Bhagavad Gita, and the third is a codified sutras, codified language, compiled in a book called Brahma Sutra. These are the 3 volumes of works that have to be studied. I'll go a little tangent from what is being said into this book so that it gives you a comprehensiveness to this. Within the Hindu fold, within the Hindu umbrella, dharmic umbrella, there are several schools of thought, several schools of thought of philosophy. Each school has its own tradition. Therefore, it is called a sampradaya. Sampradaya means a tradition. We here in Chinmaya Mission follow the Advaita Vedanta tradition. Traditions can be of various types. Now, this is based on the philosophical aspects that the classification is made. So, there is Advaita Vedanta, then Vishishta Advaita, then Dvaita, Nimbarka, Gaudiya. There are several such classifications based on philosophy of it, the principles of philosophy and their interpretations and application. Then there are classifications based on the mode of worship and invocation. If you are somebody who is a worshipper of Bhagavan Shiva, you will be called Vaishnava. If you are a worshipper of Vishnu, you will be called as, if you are a worshipper of Shiva, you will be called as Shaiva. If you are a worshipper of Vishnu, you are called Vaishnava. If you are a worshipper of Devi, then you are called Shakta, Shakti, Shakta. If you are a worshipper of Ganeshji, you are called Ganapatya. Ganapati worshipper is called Ganapatya. Then Saurya. Saurya, those who worship Bhagwan Surya, sun, S-U-N. There are some traditions where they follow as worshipping Kartikeya. They are called Kaumarya. His another name is Kumaraswamy. So those who follow that kind of worship, they are called Kaumarya. So that can be one classification. So this can be viewed in several classifications, but here we will limit it to the classification of the philosophical sampradayas or tradition. So whenever a teacher wants to start a particular tradition of school of thought, of philosophy, they have to necessarily prove their particular school of thought by writing a commentary on these three Prasthanatraya, the Upanishads, Bhagavad-Gita and Brahma Sutras. Now the commentary that is presented, it's not like today. Anybody who knows little English and has read Upanishad with meanings in English starts commenting upon it, all kinds of nonsense is spewed across. Now you don't take it that lightly, that you can just start talking about anything and that is called Vedanta. Like a new age writer who claims himself to be as a Hindu expert. He has a good marketing skill, so his books are quite popular. Like what's his name? Devadatt Patnaik. What he sells is pure bunch of, and I have several words, I'm filtering it out, pure bunch of nonsense. Just because he understands English, it doesn't mean that he can spew whatever in the name of spirituality. I'll tell you my experience. People. So as I was flying out of Bangalore to Dallas, somebody who came to visit, they said, "Swamiji, this book is so easy to understand. It has made my life so easy. You should read this commentary by this new age guru, Devadatt Patnaik, this Bhagavad-Gita commentary." Okay. I took that book. Fortunately or unfortunately, as I was sitting in the airport, I flipped the pages. I opened randomly a page. There was the concept of Karana Sharira, Sukshma Sharira and Sthula Sharira. When I saw his interpretations given, my jaw dropped. It's not like you miss the bullseye that, when you're trying to attempt and it is your first attempt. I would say you're lucky enough, it is somewhere on the board. I'm not expecting a novice to have it nailed down straight center bullseye. Somewhere around it should be. His interpretations were erroneous. Then I interestingly, started flipping the pages because I had to kill about almost an hour. But by the end of the hour, I decided that as I was walking out into the line, the book was a fresh new book. As I was getting out closer to the line, I threw it in the trash can and walked. Literally threw the entire new book into the trash can. Just because you know some English and you have read an English interpretation, it doesn't make you an expert. How was the system in the past? That once you write the commentaries on Bhagavad-Gita, Upanishads, Brahma Sutra, you have to be able to present your concept, you have to present your entire scheme of logic to already those who have been experts at it. It's like you are presenting a thesis and you have to defend that thesis. And there are scholars that are sitting to look at every nook and corner to find if there is any loophole in your presentation. I mean, it's a big deal, isn't it? Those of you who are into research and other things, you would know it. So similar pattern that these sampradayas have to present their thought, and there are these scholars that would be nitpicking into all the nuances to check how foolproof that particular siddhanta is, principle is. So prasthana traya that way becomes quite important to understand that school of thought. Now Upanishads, how many are they? There are today, with the available, when after the Islamic invaders came in, burnt all our libraries, about 42 universities were destroyed. That they say that Nalanda, Takshashila and various other universities that were destroyed, the libraries, when they set them on fire, it took about almost 3.5 months for it to stop burning. That much amount of literature was burned down mercilessly. Then the white Christian European settlers that came in, not settlers, invaders that came in, they also did the same, temples and libraries. So the entire Vedic literature and the Upanishads that we have on hand today are about 108. While I'm at it, let me say one more aspect to it. There are sometimes people, seeing that how far and wide and how respected the Upanishads are, there are people that have attempted in the past history to put their particular thoughts in a format of an Upanishad and squeeze it into the list of Upanishads so that they can also be popularized, saying there is a Upanishad in this name. So there was Akbar that got a bunch of scholars write something called Allopanishad, a Upanishad on Allah's name, when it didn't fly far. How do we know what Upanishad is authentic? So one of the Upanishad is called Mauktika Upanishad. In that Mauktika Upanishad, there is a dialogue between Bhagwan Ramchandraji and Hanumanji. And there 108 Upanishads have been listed out. Okay. Of these 108 Upanishads, if somebody were to ask me, which is the most important Upanishad? Pick any. All Upanishads stand at the same platform, same altar of excellence, because they are all talking about one indivisible truth called the existential principle. On that account, no Upanishad is big, no Upanishad is small. Yes, there are some which have minimal mantras, there are some which have expansive number of mantras. Brihadaranyaka and Chandogya Upanishad are those two Upanishads which have a volume to it. Whereas, say, the Ishavasya Upanishad has 18 mantras. Much smaller than that is the Mandukya Upanishad. So if you think that the number of shlokas are less, therefore this must be an easy Upanishad, so let me have a quick casual read through it, you will be mistaken. As the size becomes smaller and smaller, the number of shlokas, the amount of intense study that it requires, it demands, is, I'm just giving you Mandukya Upanishad example here. Mandukya Upanishad, in order to understand the Upanishad itself, there is Gauda Padiya Karika. Bhagwan Adi Shankaracharyaji's Guru's Guru has written an elaborate introduction into that particular Upanishad. Okay. Karika. Then Bhagwan Adi Shankaracharya ji has written a commentary on it. Then Anandagiri Maharaj has written a notes to understand Adi Shankaracharya ji's commentary. Tika, Tippani, and a crux of all of that, Gurudev has put it in his work in English. And you need a thorough study of it. You would need at least about 15-20 days of a serious seeker and a teacher conversation to happen to understand the essence of it for the first read. A very tiny Upanishad. So don't get tricked into thinking that small Upanishad, right? Let me finish in a quick read. No, you will stumble upon it. But in the field of academics, they have divided the Upanishad, the audacity of the Western Indologists that they have divided the entire Upanishadic literature into two parts. They call it as major Upanishad, minor Upanishad. I've already given you the statement saying there is no major or minor. All Upanishads stand at the same altar. Then why did they divide it into? They said all these philosophical school thoughts that have been established as traditions, they pick 10 Upanishads to talk about to present their particular school of thought. Therefore, the 10 have been put under the classification of major Upanishads. Rest of the 98 have been put under the classification of minor Upanishad. Am I getting across? Now, what are these 10 Upanishads? Isha, Kena, Katha, Prashna, Mundaka, Mandukya, Aitriya, Taitriya, Chandogya, Brihadaranyaka. Somebody says that was too fast. Can you say it again? If you go to page number 154, you will see all of them listed out. Did you get to it? Page 154, you have the list. Go back to the video on YouTube, you will have it repeatable as well. Isha Kena Katha Prashna Munda Mandukya Taitriya Aitriya Chandogya Brihadaranyaka. So therefore these are called the major Upanishads. Now what is the Bhagavad-Gita among the Prasthanatraya? There comes a story that Vedavyasji had this inspiration to write down the story of the entire 7-8 generations that he had watched in front of him. Now, when you have to write even an essay for your college application, what do you call it? Some statement. What statement is it called? Personal statement? Personal statement, you have to sit down. I have not gone through the college system, so I do not actually know. I have seen people struggle through it, so I know it from the non-subjective observer's standpoint. And first draft, second draft, third draft, and you keep ironing it, and people just to write the personal statement. Now imagine if it had to be written in a poetic form. And poetic form in Sanskritam. In Sanskritam, when you have to write the poetry, it has the meters, and meters have certain regulations, and every shloka has to come in that regulated meter. So he thought through and said, man, this is going to be a humongous task to write. So he prayed unto Brahmaji and he said, "Oh Brahma, I have this surge of inspiration to write this, but I need somebody that can match with my speed, that the shlokas as they come, they should be able to write it down." So Brahmaji said, unequivocally, there is only one person that can do it. And it is not Saraswati, not Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, Ganesh. He is the most brilliant among the devas that can accomplish this task. No one else can accomplish it. So he invoked Lord Bhagwan Ganesha. Bhagwan Ganesha said, look, that's quite a challenging task, but I will accept the task only if you agree to my conditions. What are your conditions? Is it very simple conditions? If you stop narrating that I don't have anything to write upon, that is the time, that is the moment I will quit. Meaning you have to continuously sit down and now you go back and check that Mahabharata has 100,000 shlokas. Okay, quick side detour here. When I was speaking about the Upanishads, I said they were mantras. Whereas when I'm talking about Bhagavad-Gita and Mahabharata, I'm talking about shlokas. The difference between these two to note is that which has been authored by somebody, shlokyate anena iti shloka. That which has been praised by somebody and authored by somebody, that work is called shloka. But that which is in the Upanishads, they have not been authored by anybody, therefore it is called mantra as well. Those verses are called mantra. Okay, getting back, so these shlokas had to be written. So Vedavyasji closed his eyes and said, that is a huge problem, because imagine you have to think through the story, and after the story has been, now you have to compose it, and you have to compose it in a meter, and it has to come one after the other, and he needs to scribe, and if there is a pause, he will go. So that's quite a challenging situation. So he closed his eyes and he came up with a plan. He said, okay, promise me that you will not write anything without understanding. That way, Vedavyasji also gets a breathing space. So they say that whenever Vedavyasji gave this Mahabharata and Ganeshji sat down to write, if you ever go to northern India, Himalayan treks and Tirtha Yatra, there is a place called Badrinath, where there is the biggest, largest Shaligrama of Bhagavan Sri Mahavishnu in that temple. You cross that temple and go further trekking up. You will come across a village called Mana village, Mana Gaon. Cross that village, that is the last village on the Indian border. It's not the Indian border, it is the last village that you will come across. You cross that village, then you come across these two caves. One is called Vyasa Guha, the other is called Ganesha Guha. So both of them sat in that particular guha, those caves, and where Vyasji narrated it, Ganeshji wrote it. So while that was happening, Bhagavan Vedavyasji has spread so many pearls of wisdom all across Mahabharata. And he has spread it quite evenly all across. There were times where Bhagavan Ganesha had to stop, really think through, and write it down. Some of the examples of the pearls of wisdom that Bhagavan Vedavyas ji has spread across in Mahabharata, I'll go in a chronological order so that you can quickly refer to it if need be. One, it is Vidura Niti, message given by Vidura to his brother Dhritarashtra, that was called Vidura Niti. Then there is the next message that was given again to Dhritarashtra, was by the Sanat Kumaras. It is called Sanat Sujatiyam. Then the Pandavas are in the forest and there is a situation where Yudhishthira, he sees 4 of his brothers dead. His wife is still far away and she is thirsty. He is himself thirsty and tired. There is water, but there is this Yaksha who is standing there, who says, you will get water only if you answer my questions. If you don't answer them, you will not have the permission to touch it. If you touch the water without my permission, you will be dead like your brothers. Meaning the earlier 4, out of their impatience, had attempted to touch that water, drink it, and they were now lying there dead. Imagine the amount of stability that one should have where you are seeing 4 dead bodies. You are yourself tired and thirsty. Your wife is somewhere unprotected. And here is this mad fellow who is saying, I will ask you questions, answer them, that is when you will get water. Now what would you do? You would say you would do exactly like how the other 4 brothers did. Yeah, I am not going to wait for your stupid questions and me answering them. I am going to first take that water, deliver it, and then come back and see if I can answer your questions. Yudhishthira said, okay, I understand. He breathed in, maintained his calm. It is not 1 question or 2 questions. 100 plus questions asked. And he passes that test. That is called Yaksha Prashna. Amazing, simple, straight, dart-like pearls of wisdom. Then comes the Bhagavad-Gita. After Bhagavad-Gita, the war is done. Yudhishthira feels disturbed and he goes to Bhagavan Krishna. He says, you repaired Arjuna while on the battlefield. You told him Bhagavad-Gita. I think I am disturbed. I also need you to teach me. He said, for you, the teacher should be different. I am not sufficient enough. So he says, he takes him to Bhishma. So Mahabharata, you find Vishnu Sahasranama. Before I end today, the last portion is after the entire war was done, Hastinapura was rebuilt. One day Bhagavan Krishna was sitting quietly. Arjuna comes to him and says, Bhagavan, on the battlefield, I remember you telling me something. I was very inspired at that moment listening to it. Unfortunately, I kind of have forgotten. Can you please repeat it all over? Tell you, Bhagavan is compassionate. I would have given a top spin and said, Chal hut. Bhagavan revisits the entire Vedantic concepts logically again for the sake of Arjuna, and that is called Uttara Gita. So one such pearl is called Bhagavad Gita, which is in the Mahabharata. Now what does this Vedanta talk about? That is given through the Mahavakyas. We will see it next week. I was planning to conclude this chapter today, but I had a special request from Hari Chaitanya saying that, Swamiji, I remember when we were chicks, you had taught this particular chapter over a span of 3 weeks. Please don't, cut short that. Give the entire essence of it, especially the Mahavakyas. I said, okay. So Mahavakyas, we will visit them next week. So come prepared to listen to it. We will conclude. We will not have time for the Hanuman Chalisa and the rest of it. We'll just shortly conclude it. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Take care, everyone. Nice seeing all of you. Even though it is your summer vacations, but good seeing all of you.